We hope that the White House will still manage to refrain from sliding further into a full-scale conflict, which threatens to have unpredictable consequences for the entire Western Hemisphere. Russia has never claimed any spheres of influence. Our foreign policy is based on completely different principles.
Russia advised the United States to refrain from escalating tensions with Venezuela. Moscow directly compared the stability of the United States to that of crisis-ridden Venezuela amid rising tensions over American military activity in the Caribbean. At a fiery weekly briefing, Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova delivered one of the Kremlin's most strong statements yet, sharply questioning Washington's resilience and accusing former President Joe Biden of what she called monstrous actions that, in her words, forced current President Donald Trump to save the country. Zakharova argued that without U.S. sanctions and decades of pressure, Venezuela might appear more politically stable than the United States itself, an accusation aimed squarely at highlighting what Russia describes as American decline and overreach.
All other things being equal, if there were no external pressure in the form of sanctions and embargoes, we still need to see which system is more stable, the one that Biden, through his monstrous actions, brought to, so to speak, that point which President Trump described as the need to save America, or the situation in Venezuela, which, in fact, despite the imposed sanctions, embargoes, and pressure, continued to develop and did so quite actively. Of course, all of this is particularly alarming against the backdrop of, as I already mentioned, the current tensions, and we hope that the White House will still manage to refrain from sliding further into a full-scale conflict, which threatens to have unpredictable consequences for the entire Western Hemisphere. Russia has never claimed any spheres of influence. Our foreign policy is based on completely different principles.
The comments come as tensions spike in the Caribbean, where the United States has stepped up military operations following the recent seizure of a Venezuelan oil tanker near its own coast. Caracas has condemned the actions as direct provocations designed to weaken President Nicolas Maduro's government during deepening political and economic turmoil. Earlier, President Vladimir Putin held a phone call with Maduro, voicing full support while warning Washington against escalation.
He carried out a brazen military assault, an illegal kidnapping, and an outright robbery, much like ruthless Caribbean pirates, upon a merchant, a commercial, a civilian, a private vessel, a vessel of peace, which was attacked almost as it was entering the vast expanse of the Atlantic Ocean. It wasn't off the coast of Venezuela, it was almost further up, much farther north of Trinidad and Tobago, toward the island of Grenada, already heading into the Atlantic. At this very moment, as I speak to you, the crew members of that ship, that vessel, which was carrying to international markets 1,900,000 barrels of oil, which was paid for in Venezuela because everyone who takes oil must pay for it first. They are being held hostage. They have disappeared. No one knows where they are. They kidnapped the crew members. They have stolen the ship and have thereby ushered in a completely new era, the era of criminal naval piracy. This egregious act occurred specifically in the Caribbean. So Venezuela completely and unequivocally rejects this outrageous act of criminal piracy against the entire Caribbean region. I had a long conversation with our elder brother, friend, and brave man, President Vladimir Putin of Russia.
Meanwhile, the White House has confirmed that the Trump administration is planning to seize oil from the tanker.
With respect to the oil and what happened yesterday, the Department of Justice requested and was approved for a warrant to seize a vessel because it's a sanctioned shadow vessel known for carrying black market sanctioned oil to the IRGC, which you know is a sanctioned entity. So the president is committed to stopping the illegal flow of drugs into our country. He's also fully committed to effectuating this administration's sanction policy, and that's what you saw and the world saw take place yesterday. What I can tell you right now, the vessel has been seized, as you know. And the Department of Justice did that in conjunction with the Coast Guard and the Department of War. The vessel is currently undergoing a forfeiture process right now. The United States currently has a full investigative team on the ground on the vessel, and individuals on board the vessel are being interviewed and any relevant evidence is being seized. With respect to the oil, that's a different issue. As you know, Peter, the vessel will go to a U.S. port, and the United States does intend to seize the oil. However, there is a legal process for the seizure of that oil, and that legal process will be followed.
And my last one on this. If President Trump launches a bigger military campaign in the Caribbean, is he jeopardizing a possible Nobel Peace Prize?
Look, the president has proven over the past year that he is more than worthy of the Nobel Peace Prize. I think he's been nominated for it nearly 100 times this past year, which is definitely a record. He's solved, I think, 9 conflicts around the world. We are up to now. He's actively working on the Russia-Ukraine war, which is the big one as we speak, and has been over the past year. With respect to any additional action in Venezuela, I'm definitely not going to get ahead of the president or the United States military.
Back to that oil tanker, just want to know, was this a one-off, or is it safe to say the administration is taking a more active look at the oil industry in Venezuela, whether targeting other oil ships or perhaps Venezuelan oil production facilities in Venezuela?
Well, I won't broadcast any future actions from the administration, but I will just reiterate that the Trump administration is executing on the president's sanction policies and the sanction policies of the United States, and we're not going to stand by and watch sanctioned vessels sail the seas with black market oil, the proceeds of which will fuel narco-terrorism of rogue and illegitimate regimes around the world. Prolonged war is definitely not something this president is interested in. He's been very clear about that. He wants peace. He also wants to see the end of illegal drugs being trafficked into the United States and taking the lives of hundreds of thousands of Americans across our country. And he's thinking about that every day here at the White House. With every drug boat that is taken out by this administration, we are saving thousands of lives by deterring those drugs and stopping those drugs from flowing into our country.
Several U.S. senators, however, criticized President Trump's move, calling it a clear escalation.
I think it's an escalation. You could look at just that and say, well, what about the rationale for that? But it's all part of a pattern. You know, the boat strikes, the threats, land invasion could be next, seizing the oil tanker. So it is an escalation, and it continues to demonstrate Congress needs to take this up. We haven't had a single public hearing either in foreign relations or armed services, and we shouldn't be at war without a vote of Congress.
Their claims that this is about going after drugs or holding people accountable for drugs is just a bunch of nonsense. It's a cover story. And what happened with the ship is an example of how that's just a cover story. The real goal here is clearly regime change in Venezuela and accomplishing regime change by force. And if that is the case, this requires, obviously, congressional action under the War Powers Resolution.